Welcome to Brush and Beyond, where we see the world through an artist's eyes and learn to express our own worlds. Today we'll be talking about Roy Liechtenstein and his comic style. Do you like watching cartoons and reading comic books? Which ones are your favorite, and who are the main characters you enjoy the most? In the United States, there was an artist who also loved cartoons and comics, but what he enjoyed even more was painting these characters that children loved. His name was Roy Liechtenstein, born in 1923, and he was one of the founders of American pop art. Roy Liechtenstein was born in New York in 1923 and began studying painting in high school. After graduating, he continued his art training at the Art Students League of New York. Later, he pursued graduate studies in the Department of Fine Arts at Ohio State University. However, with the outbreak of World War II, he joined the U.S. Navy and put his graduate studies on hold to serve in the war. After the war ended, he returned to school to complete his unfinished degree. Following his graduation, Liechtenstein worked as an art teacher and a window display designer. At the same time, he remained dedicated to his own artistic creations, continuing to explore and develop his style outside of his professional duties. Starting in 1961, inspired by comic strips and influenced by the pop artists around him, Roy Liechtenstein began creating works based on comic book imagery. He incorporated the dot patterns used in photographic printing plates, known as Ben-Day dots, into his paintings, giving them a distinctive mechanical yet artistic quality. These pop art works, often drawing from advertising content, brought him near instant fame and established his signature style. In the 1970s, Liechtenstein expanded his use of these iconic dot patterns beyond comic-inspired scenes, applying them to other themes such as still lifes, landscapes, and even reinterpretations of classical masterpieces. This bold extension of his artistic language not only reinforced his reputation, but also cemented his position as one of the most recognizable and influential figures in the history of pop art. In the early 1960s, an art movement that had only emerged a few years earlier quickly rose to prominence: pop art. The word pop means popular, reflecting the fact that this movement drew its inspiration from magazines, television, comics, product packaging, posters, and everyday life. Before this, no one had ever thought to seriously depict objects like soup cans, Coca-Cola bottles, toilet seats, or even comic strip speech bubbles. In pop art, however, these ordinary items became central subjects. The artworks were filled with bright, vivid colors, eye-catching and playful, reminding viewers of the advertisements they already knew by heart. Importantly, pop artists were not necessarily aiming to criticize consumerism. Instead, they often found inspiration in the mass replication of supermarket goods and the unique effects produced by modern printing techniques. Using ordinary comic strips and cartoons as his main subjects, Roy Liechtenstein replicated and enlarged them with acrylic paint. Using bold black outlines, flat and vivid colors, simplified and detail-free yet lively figures, along with his signature use of Ben-Day dot elements and thick contour lines, Roy Liechtenstein's fundamental artistic characteristics were established. Roy Liechtenstein's unique comic style gradually took shape through everyday life and a small, heartwarming family moment. One day, his son was reading a Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck comic book when he suddenly pointed at Mickey and said to his father, "I bet you couldn't draw that as well." To prove him wrong, he tried to draw Mickey and Donald later. Mickey and Donald himself. Later, he drew many more comic characters, making small modifications and experimented with dramatic compositions, bright color blocks, and speech balloons. These efforts unexpectedly led to the formation of his distinctive artistic style. Inspired by his children's challenge, Liechtenstein enlarged a Mickey Mouse comic to a massive scale, which sparked a major creative breakthrough. From then on, he began sourcing material from newspaper advertisements and comic strips, using acrylic paint to replicate mundane comic images on canvas. He faithfully reproduced flat color blocks and bold black lines, even meticulously recreating the printed dots used in commercial printing. When we read newspapers and magazines, we rarely notice that illustrations are composed of thousands of tiny colored dots. Liechtenstein cleverly applied this principle to his work. He placed a metal sheet full of tiny holes over the canvas and brushed paint through it with a toothbrush, making each dot appear uniform, just like in printing. He also used protective tape to cover every smooth contour so that the paint wouldn't go beyond the edges while coloring, and then peeled off the tape after finishing. He also liked to use bright, vivid primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, along with a bit of green, black, and white. Additionally, he modified the shapes of letters in text, creating a clean, refreshing, and approachable pop art style. This work is the cover of the pop art issue of Newsweek magazine, designed by Roy Liechtenstein in 1966. In the blank background, the artist used his signature meticulous dots to imitate the effect of a printing press. The colors are mainly vivid red, yellow, blue, and white, while the contour lines are bold black strokes. He also incorporated text as an important element directly onto the artwork. Liechtenstein also created many close-up portrait works. You'll notice that even throughout these portraits, he also used his signature Ben-Day dot elements. These paintings are I'm Sorry from 1956 and Bobby Kennedy, which was the cover of a Time magazine in 1968. Here we can take a look at Roy Liechtenstein's art studio. His creative material came from comics, newspapers, advertisements, and things he observed in real life. He used these materials to create large-scale paintings and sculptures. He also combined popular culture with comic art, and he loved the sharp angles and black outlines found in cartoon artwork. Roy Liechtenstein also closely studied the works of Mondrian, Matisse, Cézanne, Monet, Picasso, as well as Chinese landscape painting. Finally, he also created many artworks about war. To summarize his artistic features, Liechtenstein loved using striking uses of color, bold outlines, dot patterns such as the Ben-Day dots, dense stripes, eye-catching lines, broad curves and sharp angles, and onomatopoeic words or sound effects in text. Here are some photos of me and my family at the Broad Museum in Los Angeles in 2021 when the Roy Liechtenstein exhibit was on display. Thank you so much for listening to this art history lesson about Roy Liechtenstein and his comic style. Join us soon for an art project based on Roy Liechtenstein. Thank you!